Welcome to Business Conversations. With me today is John Menke. John,
Hello, John.
thank you very much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
My name is John Anderson, and we're here at South Coast Printing and Graphics in
Correct.
Coos Bay. And John, you and I were talking earlier about how you purchased the business here a number of years ago, and you've had some other businesses. And I wanted to talk to you today because of that background that you've had, not only in selling businesses, but also in buying them. So tell me a little bit, you were telling me you've had a couple different businesses, but is South Coast the first one that you purchased?
No, it's not. It's actually the fourth.
The fourth?
The fourth one I purchased, yes.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your experiences in buying businesses and selling businesses in the past.
Well, the main thing I look for is cash flow. There's a lot of businesses that put on a really nice front, but when it comes right down to it, they don't cash flow enough to make it worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much the numbers I look at. I've got a nice financial model that I can go in and analyze the balance sheet with, and it'll tell me if it'll give me the expected return or not, based on historic data.
And what is the size of the businesses that you've bought and sold before?
I guess the smallest one would probably be sales of about $500,000. The largest one was $24.5 million.
That's a good range. It's a good range. It's an ideal range. Really, you're working with founders or people who bought it once before.
Correct.
They're pretty much the founder and the family of the people who founded it.
That's true. Sometimes that's an easier thing to do, and sometimes it's more difficult, because when people start a business, they generally have a lot of emotional ties to the business, and they tend to put a very high dollar value on their emotions. And generally, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't pencil out, if you like the old phrase like that.
So, in other words, you were working with what the valuation of the company is.
Correct.
And you're arriving at an agreement with them about what is its true value.
Correct.
In the marketplace, let's say. So really, one of the things there is the difference, say, between the book value of a business and the market value of a business.
Yeah, you can say that, because the market value of a business is based on more than just the numbers. It's based on the trends of the industry. You know, is it going up, is it steady, or is it in a state of decline? And most owners, when they want to sell a business, they don't take that into account. Or if they do, you know, they want you to pay for this unrealized potential that may happen someday down the road, but they want you to pay for it right now.
Right.
Which doesn't work, obviously, because you can't pay for potential that isn't there.
Right. So when you've then gone to sell businesses, how has buying businesses helped you, or has it?
Yeah, it actually has helped quite a bit, because I know what I look for when I buy a business, and in my mind, it helps me to create the value for a new owner. It basically boils down to, you know, just the nuts and bolts of it. You know, I don't get emotionally attached to a business. That's foolish. It's a business. It's not, you know, a child or something. Yeah, it isn't. It's a way to make a living.
Yes.
But a lot of owners, when they start a company, you know, they put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. On occasion, you're going to get a return for that. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes I've looked at businesses that aren't worth 2 cents, you know, and they want hundreds of thousands of dollars for them. And they're negative cash flow, and they have 0 book value. You'd be doing them a favor if you took over their debt. But very few owners will realize that. They're blinded. Because they're not a businessman, they're a business owner. And I think there's a big difference. You know, a business owner has a lot of emotional ties to things, especially if they started the business. But a businessman looks at it from the numbers.
So some of the things we're talking about in terms of valuation then would be what is the accounts receivable, or what is the equipment value, and then what is the cash flow? What other main factors would concern you?
Well, one thing I look at too, when you mentioned accounts receivable, is the turnover rate.
Right.
You know, I look for a business that does a turnover rate between 20 and 27 days. Generally, you give net 30 days, but if you have good customers, they'll generally pay quicker. And if you've got customers that aren't, you know, they can run 40, 50, 60, 120 days to get paid.
Right, right.
And when I bought this business, we did have a few customers that were very slow in paying, and we just terminated relations with them, because you're actually losing money when you have your working capital tied up for 3 to 6 months trying to get paid.
Yes.
And of course,
what profit you had quickly disappears.
It disappears, and even though you put a finance charge on there, customers like that refuse to pay them.
And even if you did get paid for them, it doesn't compensate you for the time.
No, it doesn't.
The billings and the statements and the phone calls and.
Correct.
Very interesting. So, what advice would you give to businessmen that are interested in looking at their next steps in terms of how they can prepare their business for sale in the future, and possibly one of those steps might involve the purchase of a business, or at least learning how to shop for a business?
Well, there's two ways of looking at buying a business. There's the standard way. You know, I should know everything about this business before I even think about buying it.
Right.
There's what I call the Richard Branson technique. The gentleman who founded Virgin Airlines. He's going to have his own version of a space shuttle now.
Yeah.
He buys businesses that he knows absolutely nothing about. So he goes into it with a whole clean slate, clean ideas, fresh ideas, and goes from there. And he's been incredibly successful with that.
Now that's an unusual model.
That's a very unusual model.
Because most people would, you know, the common knowledge or, you know, common sense would be, well, you better know about that industry before you get yourself involved in it.
Well, yeah, that's very true, but you don't need the intimate, hands-on knowledge, day-to-day things, because there's a common set of business principles that go throughout virtually every business.
Good point. Good point. Now, when it comes time to actually be preparing a business for sale, what do you typically recommend or consider, and how many years it takes? I've heard various figures. What do you go by?
I have worked one time for 3 years to put a business into good shape to be sold. I had one instance where the business was up running fine, somebody came in, wanted to buy it, made an offer we couldn't refuse, and it was done in 30 days. So there was no preparation, it just happened.
Well, one of the things that when I work with clients is when they don't have a clear plan, they just know that someday they're going to sell it. And there are at least several years. I recommend that they begin to plan to have the business able to be sold within 6 months to a year on some kind of level. In the event that there's an emergency that takes place, or someone comes along, like you mentioned, with an offer too good to be true. Yeah, in other words, keep that business as close to saleable condition as quickly as possible, and then keep it there. What's your sense of that?
Generally, I'd probably disagree with you.
Oh,
respectfully, of course, but if you want to sell a business, that's a good thing. But if you want to run a day-to-day business and make it grow, planning to sell and trying to do everything to make it sell can interfere with that and actually hurt you.
Yeah.
So if you want to sell a business, run the business like you're going to sell it. If you want to run it as a continuing operation, run it in that fashion.
Yes, because there are certainly different tax strategies. If you're going to run it as an operation to profit from, you're going to have a different approach to it in terms of the tax.
Right.
You're going to minimize the taxes. You're going to maximize you're going to reinvest into your company continuously, but that's going to show poorly on a balance sheet or on a profit and loss statement.
Right.
But if you're preparing to sell it, you're going to minimize your expenses and your overhead to maximize the profit, pay the maximum taxes you can, so that that profit and loss statement looks just as good as it can.
Right.
Is that what you're talking? One of the things you're talking about?
That's one of the things, and one thing I've seen with two companies I looked at buying, one here and one in Sweden, is that to get their company ready for selling, they cut their staffs by almost half. And their profit bottom line went up and up and up. It looked just great. But in the end, they're committing suicide.
Yes, they are.
On a short-term basis, but they had planned on selling it at a very good price, getting the heck out of Dodge and laughing all the way to the bank with the money. And letting the new owners sit there with a problem.
Right.
So, you know, you have to look at not only the operations of a business, but you have to look at the cash flow, and you have to look at the owners. You have to get to know them a little bit, see what kind of people they are. Because like this company, my partner and I tried to buy over in Sweden, everything looked great on paper. You know, I'm coming to find out, he was taking a lot of cash out of Sweden, and he had 2 sets of books and was investing it in Russia, which, had he gotten caught, he'd have ended up in a lot of trouble with the Swedish authorities. Because they actually do a thing over there called lifestyle audits. And what that is that, say you make $100,000 a year, you should have such and such a year Volvo and such size house, and if that doesn't match, they're gonna come knocking on your door and find out why you're living beyond what they think are your needs. And that's exactly what this gentleman was doing. So we did not want to buy into a hornet's nest like that.
So how long did you spend over there to get to know him? How long typically does it take?
I spent 3 weeks in a hotel over there in Stockholm.
And in 3 weeks' time, you started to get a sense that something was rotten in Denmark.
Yeah, in that case, Stockholm, yeah.
Very good.
But when you're investing a large amount of money, you know,
Right.
a small investment in an airplane ticket and a hotel room and meals, that could have saved tens of thousands of dollars.
This is true. This is true. Let's switch to another subject because I sense you have some real expertise in the idea of when an industry is changing, such as the printing industry and the graphics industry is changing in recent years. You're successfully reinventing yourself with a new model in your graphics business. There's many businesses and industries that are going through wrenching changes right now. Could you share with us some of the ideas that you're implementing, or how do you look for new models have you done this before with other companies? I know you had a hardware store, but has there been any other clear example of when you've used this methodology to take a company such as the printing industry and breathe new life into it with a new marketing approach?
Yeah, I did that in the RV business. When we first started the RV business, we concentrated on trailer sales. The reason we did that, they're relatively inexpensive. You know, anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000, $25,000 for a fairly nice trailer. And the margins are good. They're like 14–15%, which, you know, that's a fairly decent check. But
as compared to an RV, and share with us the price ranges of an RV, a comparable RV, because I know there's quite a difference.
Yeah, when we moved in, we got away from trailers and went to the RV business for several reasons. One, they were actually easier to sell. We found the more expensive the motorhome, the easier they were to sell.
Oh.
Because people that buy motorhomes at the $250,000 to $500,000 price range have a lot of disposable income. Whereas somebody that wants to buy a $10,000 trailer, it's a budget item. You know, can that budget afford $120? If it goes to $130, that may not work.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So so I'm a little confused there. In other words, you bought an RV dealership.
Right. It's just sold trailers.
Oh, that just sold trailers.
Right.
And you were getting good margins, and you were selling trailers in the 10 to 20.
But it was very difficult.
But it was very difficult.
Yes, and our service department was always flooded with repair work. Because the trailers in that range that sold easy had a lot of warranty issues. They were built cheap.
Yeah, right. And you were the dealer, and you had to fix them.
That's right.
You had to honor that warranty.
Yeah, so we switched into high-end motorhomes, and one of them we sold was Country Coach, which is made here in Oregon.
Yes.
And for a 3-year stretch, we were their largest dealer outside of Oregon.
Wow, well, that's a good example of looking at a business, buying a business, and looking at what's working and what's not, and coming up with a new solution, a new marketing approach.
Yeah, because if you look at a trailer, what we sold, you can sell a $10,000 trailer, maybe make $1,200 to $1,400, and have a lot of heartaches getting there. You can sell a $350,000 motorhome to make $25,000 on one product, and it's an easy sale.
That doesn't take a lot of math to figure the difference there.
Pretty doggone simple in my book.
Yeah, yeah. So, how about, what's been your experiences now with your graphics business? Is there something you'd like to share with us there? Because that seems to be another example, and now that's a digital product.
Right. Basically, when we took over the business, this was a straightforward offset print shop. You know, standard nuts and bolts, and they haven't changed a great deal over the last 30 or 40 years. The former owner was really on the leading edge of technology. He put in a digital plate maker, brought computers in, so he was really working hard to make the best of the business, and you know, I appreciated that, and that helped us get started. But what we found is that this print shop, like a lot of other ones, try and do everything for everybody. We want to be one stop for everything, and you cannot do that and be competitive. So what we've done, we found out what we're really good at, and we go with that. And what we can't do very good in-house or very profitably, we will farm out to somebody that can. Our customers still get the same great service, but we come out a little bit ahead, and so do they, because we share the cost savings with them, and what we can't do in-house.
Good idea.
And the other thing we've done is branched out into the digital print market. We have a new company called ClassicPrintsandMaps.com. That has worked very well for us. We started it last August. There's a thing called Alexa on the web. It'll monitor how your website is doing in relationship to all the other websites in the world. When we started out in August, our first month, we came in at 7.5 million most popular websites. So we're a long ways to go to get up in the rankings. Right now, we are at about 400,000 most popular, 7 months later. And you know, we worked hard to do that, and done our homework and done our research. And what we're finding, it's a wonderful addition to what we do in the offset printing. Because our market, like most others, you know, you have your ups and downs, slack times, and then there's times when you're so busy you can't see straight. And or feast or famine, whatever you'd like to call it, but that's just the nature of the business, where adding this digital printing, the maps, has really leveled things out. And it also gives us a wide exposure for marketing. We've actually had 2 sales to Australia so far in the last month, which is wonderful. And I did some market research over the weekend and analyzing our website, and what I've come to find out is the United States is 95% of our market as far as people that view the website. The second most popular country that views our website is Poland. And
wow.
I don't know why, but yeah, that's our second most popular country for viewing, even over Canada or Mexico.
Boy, that really is interesting. And have you shipped any products to Poland yet?
Not yet, but a lot of
A lot
lookers.
of people are looking.
And they tend to look at California and New York City. Prints from there.
Isn't that interesting?
So I think there's California dreaming there.
There's some fascination there with,
Yep.
with it. So now, one of the things naturally is that by broadening your market like you have, then it reduces the ups and downs of the local economic situation. It reduces seasonality and some of those other factors, and you're able to promote over a broader area.
Correct.
A much wider offering than would ever be interested or be able to generate much revenue in the immediate, 5 to 10 miles that would normally be your normal clientele base.
Yeah, we have tried hard to spread out, so we do printing now from Eureka, California, up to Astoria, up and down the coast.
Hmm.
And we have probably a dozen clients out of state that have come to us by referrals.
Mhm.
But again, one of the limiting factors is shipping,
Right.
because of UPS and FedEx rates have, you know, gone through the roof with the high gas price.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
But generally, unless it's a very small item, it seems like shipping would be more of a detriment in terms of small ticket. Once you get over, say, a couple of $100 in product, the percentage that the shipping is going to represent is going to be pretty small. Is that your experience or no?
yeah, it is. Yeah, because you can get a little box of business cards and it costs you $11 to ship from UPS.
Right.
You know, and that doesn't even weigh roughly a pound.
Right, because of the minimum charge to ship anything.
Right, and the fuel surcharges and things like that.
Right, but once you get over something that's either 10 or 20 pounds, then
Then the price per pound is
goes
reasonable.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. So you're doing two things. A, you're marketing more broadly using the internet, and then second, you've moved to some digital products
Right.
that you're able to have less inventory, and you're doing just-in-time production work.
Exactly, because like when we get an order in the morning on the website, and we produce it, have it done usually by noon, 1 o'clock, and it goes out that afternoon by UPS. So we have no inventory other than raw materials. So we produce the images on demand.
So any time that business people can look for ways to improve the leverage from the internet, either through marketing or through product delivery or any of those areas, these are important things to look for as an opportunity to increase profitability in these times. Is that your experience?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, in general terms, no in specifics. And what I mean by no in specifics, you'll see a lot of people that say, you know, we'll promote your website. You know, I have a website. In reality, that doesn't mean a doggone thing, unless it's a very popular website in rankings. It has all the keywords, you have all the meta tags in place. You have people come to that site and come back and come back and come back. But if you have a site that just says, this is Joe's Hamburger Shop here in the corner of 4th and Main, nobody's ever going to see it. So having a website does you absolutely nothing unless it's done right.
And you work it.
And you work it, yeah.
Because it's just like any other. If you have a storefront on Main Street and you don't work it,
That's right.
so what?
Yeah, because when we first got into our classic prints and maps, we hired somebody to do a website for us and paid a fair amount of money for that. And it was absolute garbage. So we basically took it off the web and said we can do it better ourselves. Got the books, learned how to do it, went to a couple classes, did a lot of internet research, put the stuff together, made it work, and then monitor it weekly and see how it's doing, and then fine tune it.
Right.
And we just keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, and we'll never stop.
Making
Because
those
it can
adjustments.
always be better.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And that's really the case with all marketing efforts. I mean, the internet is just one example of those. Because a lot of people think, well, that they get their ads in order and the ads are there and they look good, and then they leave it alone.
Yeah.
And
Doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
Because, to give you an example, one of the first luxury motorhomes I bought, we paid about $225,000 for our cost. And beautiful coach made by a company called Newmar back in Indiana. We had that thing for 6 months and ended up selling it for $5,000 less than we paid for it.
Oh, no.
And what we come to learn from that one coach is that it was absolutely gorgeous on the inside. Flat screen plasma TV, everything that came out of the ceiling.
Wow.
Power shades, the whole 9 yards.
Huh.
Had a small kitchen, small engine. When ladies buy a motorhome, they want the nicest interior and the biggest kitchen, and the boys want the biggest horsepower diesel you can get. That had neither.
Right.
We learned that lesson real quick.
Very interesting. Yes. You've got to know your market, but no matter how much you know, there's things you're not going to know. It's only by doing and then asking why, what's wrong here.
The best thing, I mean, life gives you is mistakes, because that's a great learning opportunity. Just try and keep the enormity of your mistakes small.
Good advice, good advice. So, I guess one of the major factors when I'm working with small business owners is around, the advance in planning and their own personal financial situation. Do they have some other investments? Do they have real estate, or do they have an IRA? How much is their Social Security benefit going to be? Is this just another phase that they're going through? In other words, many small business owners, when they sell a business, they just turn right around and buy another business. They just buy a different business. As it's been said to me, is what was I going to do? Put it in the stock market? The money from the proceeds from the sale of a business? And they were like, I don't think so. So they turn around and buy a different business. And of course that makes a difference whether the person's in their 40s or whether they're in their 60s, let's say. In terms of your plan, you were telling me that you're 56?
54.
54, excuse me.
Don't make me older than I am. 3%.
All right. So, and you've got a plan that you, in about when you're 60, you're planning to explore about what's next for you. In other words, it's another stage for you.
Yeah, because I plan realistically, if I'm like other members of my family, retiring at about 80.
Oh,
but
okay.
that's pretty much the age that men of my family retire at, between 78 and 80. But by the time I'm 60, I'll have done this for about 12 years, and that'll be enough. Time to do something different.
That's a good approach. That's a good approach. And have you ever worked with or brought in family members to your business in any way? Or a lot of small business owners try to do that. And, it's got its ups and downs. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, I don't. Simple reason, my children are back in Minnesota.
Oh.
The one that's here is a nurse, so she has no interest in this.
Right. Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us
My
today.
pleasure, John.
Yeah, it's been a good conversation, and
all right.
Thank you very much for joining us on Business Conversations, and we'll speak to you next time. Thank you very much.